And we should be live for the Steelers Depot live stream, as I forget to mute everything. I apologize for that. As always, as I hear myself in my own headset. So, as always, Dave Bryan, Alex Kazora here from Steelers Depot, answering any and all of your Steelers questions for the next hour. Appreciate you guys being here. Dave, how you doing? Answering any and all of your Steelers questions.
I'm doing good. I got a little bit of feedback.
Yeah.
Your stream signal good?
Oh, I know what's going on. Hold on. There we go. Sorry.
You're fading in and out.
So I should sound better now.
All right.
Right.
Yeah.
Do I sound better now? Okay. Because I forgot to mute it on my desktop as well. So apologize for that here. A little rusty here in the offseason, but we should be good and underway. How are you guys doing? I'll re-ask the question here since things are a little less chaotic. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's Monday, and I'll be doing a lot better if the Pens can pull out Game 5 tonight. That's a face-off that's about to start here in a little bit.
Yeah, it might be a little bit later crowd tonight because I know everyone here is watching the Pens game. So again, you guys know the drill. If you've been here before, Dave and I here for the next hour answering any and all of your Steelers questions. So be sure to ask in the chat below if you want to have your question be guaranteed to be asked and answered and done so almost immediately. Be sure to send us a super chat. Does Dave have an echo? Okay, Dave has the echo. Let me
Testing 1 1 1 1. Hello, testing.
Dave should no longer have the echo. I forgot to check that and ask that question. So let me double check that, and I will post this on Facebook so more people can join the stream, and we'll get to answering your Steelers questions. Does Dave no longer have the echo fixed? Okay. There we go. All right, let's start by answering your questions here. And again, thank you guys for all the birthday wishes. I appreciate that from everyone who sent one. Let's see. Desmond Barnes, less of a question, more of a comment, an ecstatic one at that, saying, "Hey, Alex, did you hear we got Najee Harris? I'm so happy we passed on J.K. Dobbins. I'm still ecstatic." Yeah, I think Dobbins was a good back, but I would certainly take Harris over J.K. Dobbins, especially just in terms of the completeness of his game. He's the most well-rounded back in this year's draft, and probably the most well-rounded back of last year's draft as well.
Yeah, I tell you, I don't know how many people read the contextualization that I just did on him the other day on all 53 pass targets, I think, at Alabama last year. I think, 43 receptions. The thing that stuck out the most about it is, look, running backs average depth of target really isn't that big of a deal with most running backs, and that wasn't really the case with Najee either. And we knew we were going to find that on top of it, just how he was used. Most of his catches and targets came right at the original line of scrimmage. The thing that really stuck out the most about Najee Harris and his 43 catches was that he averaged almost over 9 yards after the catch on average. Now, granted, a couple of those catches were made after the line of or behind the line of scrimmage, and that's obviously where you start is where the ball is caught. That's where you measure measure it all, and the yards after the catch. But the fact that he was, I think, second in the NFL or in college football last season behind only Travis Etienne in yards after catch averages, quite impressive.
Yeah, I thought you did a really good job kind of breaking that down, and we knew that Harris was an excellent, receiving back. There was no question about that, or no really real projection. And I posed a question in an article, and I believe we talked about it on the podcast briefly as well on Friday. It was that could Najee Harris break Chase Claypool's record of receptions by a rookie? The record is held by Claypool at 62. I think Harris, if he plays all 17 games, could easily surpass that. Not going to probably hit the Le'Veon Bell 85 kind of range, but could easily hit, the mid to high 60s. So I thought you did a good job breaking down Harris out of the backfield. Next question here comes from Mike Adesso. Interesting one. Hello, is this Penguins Depot tonight? Might be a little bit of that. Mike says, in all seriousness, my questions is any clue on who succeeds Art Rooney II? There doesn't seem to be one clear person they are grooming like Art Jr. was. Yeah, I'd have to look at that. There's so many Rooneys, I can't even keep track of all the Rooney names at this point. But hopefully that's not going to be a question they'll have to address for a decade plus. Verdon Barzy, two questions. One, Chooks, who did not look good at all at right tackle. Is he favored to be the starting left tackle? Money aside, is Sherman even a good fit for this defense? I'll tackle the first and address the second, Dave, because I know you talked about or had written the article about Richard Sherman's comments on a core four. Yes, he is favored to be the starting left tackle. I mean, if he's not the favorite, then who would be? Would it be fourth round pick Dan Moore Jr.? Would it be Zach Banner, who's probably going to fit in as the right tackle? Would it be Joe Haig? I think from a partial lack of options, but also an opportunity to see what a core four can do in the final year of his rookie deal. I think he is more comfortable, if I had to guess, playing left tackle. It's where he played in college. Probably a little more natural for him as well. It maybe hides a little bit of that lack of run blocking in his game. So I think he is the favorite at left tackle. Dave, in terms of the second question about Richard Sherman, would he just be on paper even a good fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I mean, look, you're talking about a guy that's up there in age now, and predominantly throughout his career, he's been a more of a zone cover three type of
Mm-hmm.
player. Look, I mean, without a doubt, I mean, Richard Sherman is a competitor. You know, he probably still has another year left in him, but what kind of money is Richard Sherman really realistically going to look for on top of it? And you cut a guy in Steven Nelson because basically salary, what $7 million right around in that,
Mm-hmm.
and unless Richard Sherman was willing to come in and play for the NFL minimum, I've said it time and time again. I'm all for this team signing as many minimum salary benefit guys as they can. But I mean, let's be realistic here. I mean, it would probably take a couple injuries at this point, and Richard Sherman really not having much of a market out there for him to land in Pittsburgh. And look, I know there's somebody else has got another just unfounded rumor out there. I think about
Mm-hmm.
Malik Hooker out there this
Right.
morning and all. There's no evidence that anything like that's going to go down either. Once again, is it possible to, with the salary cap situation to sign some of these players? Look, you can massage this cap all you want if you want to get into more voidable years, that kind of thing. But the thing specifically with Malik Hooker is this a guy that hasn't stayed healthy his entire NFL career. Right now, he's coming off of an Achilles injury that happened, I think, in late September
Mm-hmm.
of last season. That injury generally is about at a minimum 9 months recovery time just from surgery, just to get back doing some of the things you like
Right.
doing again. So once again, you're dealing with a person, a player that probably isn't going to be right for a while. So I just do not understand all the obsession with the Malik Hookers and the Richard Sherman. And look, I know the Richard Sherman story came about because Stephen A. Smith was pressuring him. And, what else is Richard Sherman going to say at this point? Obviously, he would like to play for any team that would pay him,
Mm-hmm.
his going price right now. So I would be surprised if any one of those two, Richard Sherman or Malik Hooker, wind up with the Steelers.
Sure. Yeah, with Malik Hooker, I mean, there are some things about him on paper that make sense, being the pedigree guy, potential area of need, a Western PA native, those things make sense, but the Achilles injury, I would probably say that Achilles has passed ACL as the most devastating injury that you can suffer, essentially, especially for a safety guy that has to push off a lot. So, and then in terms of the report itself was so vague and so loosely worded. I mean, you take it with a grain of salt. The report was we're hearing that he could be on the radar. There's so many qualifiers there. I mean, there's just really nothing you can even take from that. So, I would put it as doubtful as happening. Not impossible, but doubtful.
Of all the players mentioned, recently, and I think there was the Russell Okung that Bill
Right.
Barnwell wrote about, saying 1 year, $6 million. I can tell you, that's not going to happen, obviously, without any voidable years. And then who was the other tackle this past week that uh, somebody wrote about?
Morgan Moses.
Yeah, Morgan Moses. I mean, that's another one. I mean, look, if you could get some of these guys to do the voidable years and take
Hmm.
an extremely decreased salary, but even so, we talked about Morgan Moses. I think the other day. This is predominantly a right tackle too. So,
Right.
if you did go out and you signed someone like him, what are you going to do?
Right.
You going to move one over or whatnot?
Yeah, that goes into the mutated genomes question of would you try to sign Russell Okung, or is he washed? Again, as Dave would say, unless you're going to play for really, really cheap, I just don't really see necessarily the fit or the use there. I think you do. Obviously, Banner's going to start. You paid him a 2-year deal, paid him pretty good money, so he's going to be one starter. And then I do think you want to see what you have in a core four at left tackle. So I don't know if Okung is washed. I mean, obviously, he doesn't have a whole lot left, but I'm not really banging the table to try to sign a starting tackle here in end of May. John Pennington asks, Dave and Alex, do you think the Steelers can afford players like Sherman and Moses? And do you think the team has faith in the players at tackle and outside linebacker positions as it stands? As Dave said, unless, with voidable years, as Dave says all the time, with voidable years, anything is possible. And you can, massage the cap so much that even if somebody got paid $6-7 million for 1 year, I mean, you could voidable year contract, this thing. So you could make it fit theoretically. Do you want to do that? Do you want to take on the dead money for a guy you're going to have for one season, 30 something years old? That's a different question. So I mean, theoretically, you could probably say they could afford anybody. Now, if it's a 1-year deal without any voidable years, then I don't think you can afford those guys. But if you can make it work and the players agreeable to it, then that's possible. So to answer that question, let me scroll back up here. What was the other part of your question there, John? Do you think the team has faith in the players at tackle or outside linebacker positions as it stands? At tackle, I think they do. I think they've addressed it pretty thoroughly with Joe Haig and Dan Moore Jr. At edge, probably less so, considering they wanted to sign Ryan Kerrigan. So it probably speaks to some need there to address the position and upgrade the position some. So yeah, I would probably say they're still looking at edge options, but I think they're you know relatively thin right now, especially on free agency in terms of trying to find somebody. Could you find someone with a trade or at cut downs? I think that is possible. So, yeah. Next question here comes from, let's see, the last stop. I'm going to talk about Sherman being a terrible fit for the scheme. Mike Adesso, who would you guess to be the next Steeler to get into the Hall of Fame? Ben, is he a first ballot guy? I would say yes to both. Is there a chance that Pouncey could get in? I think so, but it's probably going to take some time. He's not going to be a first ballot guy in all likelihood, so I think Ben probably going to be your next Hall of Famer. Let's see here. Trying to go back through the questions. All right, Dave, you're back here. I need you to take a phone call a second ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the question?
I just making sure that you were back and everyone
Okay.
could hear you. But next Hall of Famer probably Ben, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, I would think so. I know there's going to be, in the meantime, probably a little bit of a push for Hines Ward, but you and I have talked about Hines Ward and his situation uh, for a little while now, and will he get in? Will he ever get in? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think there's a possibility of that happening. The only problem is how long is he going to have to wait? There's quite a log jam right now at the wide receiver position. You and I have talked several times about this. I get it with him and his blocking and changing the game and those kind of things, but just at any given time was Hines Ward really thought of as one of the best wide receivers in the game? And the correct answer to that's really no.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I once again I don't think he's got a chance to get in, at least not in the next decade. I don't think. And we've already seen what's happened here. Uh, you know, most recently with him can't get into kind of that final leg of it there. And I know Alan Faneca is probably going to push real hard for him here during his induction coming up later this summer here. But beyond that, it's just going to be so hard for him to get in. So I
Mm-hmm.
would think Ben Roethlisberger would be the next one put into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, from the Steelers.
Yeah, I'm with you. Next question here comes from Lumberzack94, who says, "Is Kevin Corbett a Hall of Famer?" And then says, "Is he a lock?" I would not put him as a lock in terms of is he a Hall of Famer. I think is an interesting question. I don't know if he's a lock or not, or I know he's not a lock. Is he a Hall of Famer though? I think it's a case for that. It just the bar is set so high for the contributors there that I'm not sure. What do you think, Dave?
On which one? On
On
this,
is Kevin Colbert a Hall of Famer?
boy, definitely if they get one more Super Bowl,
Sure, but if he retired
for
today,
sure. That's a tough one, man. That is a tough one. It would obviously have to be what is a contributor, I guess,
sure,
category and all like that. I mean, I suppose it's possible. I mean, how many times do you see general managers get in though?
right, yeah. It's not many, and usually those guys are like the dynasty ones. So, yeah, I don't know. I think he's like 50-50 right now. But he's got another year, and we'll see what he can do from there. So, next question comes from let's see, Jeb Bro. Who is the nickel corner going to be in your opinion? I think it's going to be Cam Sutton, probably going to kick inside in the slot. At least questions and concerns about who's going to play outside corner. But I think Cam Sutton probably going to be your best option in the slot because if it's not him, then I really don't know who you're going to turn to right now. I guess Arthur Millette maybe if he makes the roster, but I think Cam Sutton's probably your best bet. But I think you go into camp and see how the young guys like Pierre and Lane and all those guys do, and kind of go from there.
I think we could still possibly. I mean, keep obviously Millet's going to be in the in the conversation here, but and they have thrown Shakir Brown and through undrafted free agency, added him. I think he's going to be an option. I think you just got to keep throwing some mud up against the wall and see if you get anybody to stick in there that
Hmm.
could potentially play in the corner. It might get into a situation where they use a lot of mix and match in here, and I'd be interested to see if Cameron Sutton even gets some of that role in the slot,
Right.
assuming maybe a guy like Pierre steps up on the outside.
Yeah, I think how those young guys do will kind of shape the veteran guys and where you can move them and where you can match them. So if Pierre or Justin Lane has a really good camp, that probably makes you feel more comfortable about moving to the inside. So I think you just kind of go into camp and evaluate, and then you make those decisions coming off the preseason and training camp and things like that. Louis or Louis Perron, why do you think Terrell Edmonds' fifth year option was not picked up? Dave, I know as you always say, just simply they didn't feel he was worth the money.
Yeah, plain and simple. I don't think how you can look at it any way other than that. And, I wrote about that, way ahead about, the Steelers having the offseason decision. Look, it was going to be a no brainer with, it was going to be a no-brainer as it was with Minka Fitzpatrick. Everybody knew that, but some people said, "Oh, it's pretty much a slam dunk that Edmonds was going to get that picked up." I wasn't so sure. I thought it could really go either way there, and there's no other way to look at it other than. And you and I talked, obviously wrote about this after Kevin Colbert talked about it, and talked about it on the podcast as well too. If he was worth the $6 million, it would have been picked up, plain and
Hmm.
simple. The fact that Kevin Colbert tried to use the cap situation and everything like that as a reason, why they chose one or the other over the other one was a little bit too rich for my blood. Look, I mean, this is a Steelers team right now that just has gobs of cap room. Now, albeit you still got a lot of things that are going to happen in from between now and 2022. Stephon Tuitt restructure, Chris Boswell restructure, add a little bit to it. The TJ Watt extension that's going to happen later this summer. What is that 2022 cap charge going to look like there? It's probably going to look somewhere around 24, $25 million,
Hmm.
as far as that goes. But long story short, they just not they just did not feel he's worth the $6 million, and that's what it boils down to. If they thought he was worth that money, that fifth year option would have been picked up.
Right, and then in terms of the specifics of Edmonds, I just think a general lack of playmaking. Just obviously that's well documented to not have the big plays. Is lacking the splash there, and I think he's continued to make improvements and steady improvements, but not maybe at the rate this team wants or needs or expects from a first round pick. So I think that's specifically the reason why there. Next question comes from, as I scroll back up to try to find it, Wes Hickok, will Sherman actually join the Steelers? No, I don't believe Richard Sherman will join the Steelers. I'm not going to say 0% chance, but don't expect that to happen. Devin saying he doesn't want Mason Rudolph. Yeah, that's fair. Don't know who the quarterback next season is going to be. Robotron says, Marcus Allen, do you think he's going to see a greater number of snaps at backer because of that weight? He looks pretty big now. Dave, what are your thoughts on Marcus Allen playing more inside linebacker in 2021?
Man, he's got to make the team first, and
Sure.
here's to hoping that we don't have to see much, if any.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Allen playing inside. Obviously last year played some in what kind of late end of half type situations and some dime type situation there. I guess some sub package type situations there. Here's to hope we don't have to see much of that. So something has gone wrong if we have to see Marcus Allen play much of any snaps on a defensive side, whether it be sub package or anything.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you. I think you have Vince Williams back in the fold, Robert Spillane, of course Devin Bush coming back. Ultimately, that's the big news there. You draft Buddy Johnson. I think it'll take a lot. Now, Will Allen playing some sort of dime role. You think about who's the dime backer for this team going to be? Cam Sutton was that guy last year. Now he's your starting right corner slash starting slot corner. So who's that 60B going to be? That is, I think, the question. And could an Antoine Brooks Jr. fill that role? Possibly. Could a Marcus Allen fill that role? I think that's also possible. Wes Sidcock saying, we're talking about Richard Sherman, then a follow up. Do you think we had a cornerback or an edge? I think edge is more likely than corner right now. Dave, what do you think this team could continue to look to upgrade?
Most definitely an edge. Now, Cassius Marsh, talked in a couple of interviews, one on the Ross Tucker podcast, and one for another outlet recently, saying his role right now is to be the third edge rusher, and he thinks his the best thing that he has to offer is the ability to rush the passer, and obviously play on special teams. There's never been much of a doubt when it comes to uh, when it comes to his ability to play on special teams. But beyond that's another one that you don't want to see on the field that much if you can help it. No, the Quincy Roche, they obviously have a draft pickup, invested in him now. Interesting to see how quickly he can be brought along here to maybe take over 10, 15 of those snaps at some point there. But I, I wrote about it the other day. We talked about it several times. We talk about it every offseason at this time. This team, after rookie minicamp takes place, has a history of adding two to three
Right.
free agents that wind up making the 53-man roster here. So there's no reason to think that won't happen this year. It's just going to have to be on the cheap, and probably someone that can help out on special teams too. So best bet, I think, would be edge rusher at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you too on edge as a potential place to upgrade. Again, free agency options thin. I wrote about Trent Murphy being, I think, maybe the most sensible and logical option, or you could, trade for somebody, or probably most likely of all, find someone at final cut downs. Stephen Ray says Haskins is the future. Watch Duke and play. Just need someone like Ben and Tomlin to steer him the correct way. Need help on defense still. So Stephen Ray, a big fan of Dwayne Haskins, still potential. Next question here will come from Kent Sturgill. Who do you think will spell Najee when needed? I don't know. I mean, it's obviously there's Snell, McFarland. I think McFarland, considering as though the Pens just scored, so Pens up 1-0 there. Looks like Geno's put the puck in the back of the net. I would guess that given McFarland's relationship with Matt Canada and working together at Maryland, that he's probably the number two. But I don't think there's going to be a clear defined number two. I think it could be more situational, and just kind of dependent on the ebb and flow of who's kind of playing well in that moment. So I don't think those things are settled right yet. But I will go with Anthony McFarland to try to give you a more direct answer there. Next question comes from Ralphie Bean. Can the Steelers get Juju Smith-Schuster? Can they get him to be the go-to receiver next season, or could it be Chase Claypool? I think it'll be all those guys. I think Deontay Johnson probably still dominates the target share because he's the ex-receiver in this team. But Dave, how do you think the pecking order is going to go in terms of like Claypool versus Juju versus Deontay Johnson?
Well, I mean, Deontay obviously probably going to be your X. So that's a starting point, and then it's hard to imagine Juju not being on the field quite a bit, at least in in two and three wide receiver sets there. How much 11 personnel are they going to use compared to previous seasons? Yeah, we'll see. This team generally is a heavy use 11 personnel, three wide receiver grouping, and if that's the case, it's hard to imagine Chase Claypool not being on the field more. Now, Juju's come out saying that there might be an opportunity for him to play a little bit more on the outside this season. If something was to happen like that, you would assume a guy like Chase Claypool would be the guy to come down, play a little bit more in the big slot, if you
Hmm.
will. What are you going to do with Eric Ebron? Obviously, if he's the lone tight end on the field, you sure hope that he's not going to be tucked into the line of scrimmage and you run too terribly much out of that kind of stuff there. But I think the guy that the biggest question mark right now is a guy like James Washington. How many snaps can you get a guy like James Washington overall? And make no mistake about it, when James Washington touched the ball. It wasn't much last season, but when he did, I mean, you want to talk about some hard fought yards, and the same really was the case with Juju as well too. So uh, my biggest thing is I want to see how much 12 personnel this team can use this year, meaning two or more tight ends, with obviously with Fryermuth being one of those, and or if they do run more 11 personnel or as much 11 personnel as they did last year, how
Hmm.
quickly can they get a guy like Fryermuth up to speed to be the one tight end
Right.
uh, in that 11 personnel there? So, I mean, it's going to be hard to get Deontay Johnson off the field much, and it's going to be hard to get a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster off the field much as well too. But that said, there's still going to be a high level of 11 personnel that would put
Hmm.
Claypool on the field as well.
Right. This is a base 11 personnel team. The strength is still within the receivers. Obviously, adding Fryermuth can give you more versatility, can make you more effective out of 12. And I do agree. I think you could see him in some 11 personnel over Eric Ebron to be the better run blocker. But this is still, as you said, a base 11 personnel team. Let's see. Mike says, "Are we going to have a rep at the Steelers from Steelers Depot for the Hall of Fame ceremony?" He'll volunteer if you need to send someone. Thank you, Mike. I don't think we'll have anyone there in person, but should be a lot of fun to get to watch and talk about with you guys. Maybe we'll
David O. I don't know, is David
yeah.
O going to go or no?
I mean, my guess is yes. I haven't talked to him about his plans for Canton, but that's actually a good question. He probably would be, but maybe I'll do a
Right.
live stream or something during the ceremony or something, so we can kind of talk through and watch together with you guys. Let's see. Trying to find questions. Steele, Matty Q saying, is Justin Lane in law trouble? He was. He got a plea agreement. The league, I doubt, is going to discipline the Steelers. Whatever discipline probably already happened. So I think he's generally speaking in the clear legally. Roster spot wise is still though not secured. Let's see. Ken Martin, do you think in the future the Steelers will invest the same amount of money in a quarterback as they did for Big Ben because of all the cap issues it causes? Yes. As Dave says, those are the ills of the franchise quarterback, but it's a good problem to have. So actually, you have to probably spend more considering the price of quarterbacks will forever go up. But once you find whoever the next Ben is, or you think that Ben is, you're going to pay him appropriately. That is just the cost of doing business, the cost of wanting to and competing for a Super Bowl. You are welcome, Lewis, for the answer about Terrell Edmonds. I think Rod Young's asking about UG3 being fully healthy, says Marcus Gilbert, but I assume he meant UG3. I would imagine so, but that back issue has flared up on him twice already in 2 seasons. So, how good and how healthy will that back be for the rest of the season is the question there. So I think he's got a lot of talent talking about UG3, but that back issue at that young age without a lot of playing time seems chronic, and I don't know if you can ever really trust it.
Hey, I worry about him. I mean, one season's one thing, but we've had a couple seasons in a row now.
Hmm.
Uh, well, he's got to stay healthy. That's a starting point there with him.
Jake Davis, just how bad are we at corner? We have Hayden, who's aging, and Sutton, who I wouldn't say is proven as an every snap corner. Dave, what is your take on the Steelers cornerback room? I know we've kind of already discussed on it here throughout this live stream, but just how would you kind of rate it, I suppose?
The cornerback room.
Yeah, the corners.
Yeah, it's touch and go, man. I mean, obviously you've got an experienced guy in Joe Hayden there. That's one thing, but he is another year older there. I thought Cam Sutton played well. I mean, extremely well last season there. But now, with him taking up a bigger role on, especially on the outside, there's going to be question mark there. And I mean, let's not beat around the bush here. I mean, trying to find a corner that can give you what Mike Hilton has given you the last several years, and not only in the slot as a pass defender, but against the run as well too. I mean, and until we see someone step up there's going to be question marks about that as well too. Justin Lane's really not giving us anything. Obviously, James Pierre, uh, for the amount of snaps that he played last season, which wasn't much. I mean, that there was some positive there, but it's hard to put much stock in such a small sample size that James Pierre played. You hope that maybe he's a guy, and then obviously with what they did with signing Gilbert and Shakir Brown as undrafted free
Hmm.
agents, you hope that those two can come in and do something there. But I mean, I don't think there's any other way to look at this cornerback room right now and draw a lot of question marks around it, because
Yeah.
that's where they are right now.
Sure, it was just such a departure from this past season and in 2019 after Minka was acquired because you felt like you had a really good room top to bottom depth. You could weather any of those storms. Now there's questions about just who your starter's going to be and their play. And of course, it doesn't factor in any potential inevitable injuries that are going to occur. So a lot more questions than answers right now when it comes to the Steelers' cornerback room. Let's see. Next question here is going to come from Kyle. Actually, John Pennington says, Dave and Alex, do you guys really trust Johnson and Ebron? They're both going to drop passes. I mean, that's just, they're not going to have the best hands in the world. And so do I necessarily trust a guy like Eric Ebron? No, but I think just for both of those guys, and Ebron in particular, the big plays are worth some of those drop issues. I know Ebron's not going to be an amazing player or top tier tight end, but I think you still get more good than bad from both of those guys, especially Deontay Johnson, where the flashes are really incredible and promising. So, trust is probably tough for me to evaluate, and it's a better question for the players. But I think in terms of just risk reward, upside downside, both of those guys still come out on the right end of things. Let's see. Next question will come from, I think Kyle did have one. I want to get back to his question. And by the way, shameless plug. Tomorrow on Steelers Depot at some time, probably in the afternoon, I will have a video continuing our Steelers bus series that we did last summer. The first one of this summer will be on Jarvis Jones, about a 10-minute video reviewing and analyzing Jarvis Jones' college and NFL career and why it did not work out in Pittsburgh or anywhere else for that matter. Going back here to Kyle, I just lost the place here of the question. I apologize for that. That was the question from Jake, and there was a question here from John. Man, I just lost this question. So if I come back to it, I will address it there, Kyle. Um, Ken says Claypool still has to prove himself to me, while Steel Matty Q says Roche is going to be the guy. Let me try to find another question here, and again, appreciate you guys being here. We'll be here for about another half hour. There's the question from Kyle. If Ben can't throw downfield, will weapons and scheme matter? Well, that's kind of, I guess, more rhetorical than an actual question. But, I mean, do you think, Dave, the deep ball issues are going to be solved or remedied or improved in any way in 2021? And if you do, why do you think it'll be different?
Well, first and foremost, Roethlisberger's just got to be more accurate
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to downfield passes. Talking about deep passes and talking about deep passes more than 15 yards down the field. This offense last season did get the benefit when it came to Chase Claypool of quite a few pass interference penalties. What do he have? Like, what did he draw? Like 8 of them or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. I think he led in or was right there at the top of the leaderboard of penalty yardage drawn there. Uh, and it's been going on that way with accuracy and Roethlisberger and the deep ball for a couple seasons now. So it's just not. Now he did kind of get it squared away. I think it was the second half of the what was it, the 2018 season. Start, remember the old Wi-Fi connection
Hmm.
comments and all like that.
Right.
When it came to him and Antonio Brown there. But make no mistake about it. If you look back at deep completions for Ben Roethlisberger going back, say, before 2019, a lot of those came either with wide receivers, I mean, just blowing by people, talking about Martavis Bryant or Mike Wallace. I mean, you're talking about wide open guys, or you're talking about extended play type situations.
Right.
If you go back and look at a lot of the explosive plays that Antonio Brown had, especially the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 seasons that he was with the team, a lot of those were kind of extended play situations there. Running the ball will help successfully, will help a lot of that. To some degree. Now, look, he's still going. It's not like I don't think you're going to see a huge increase in attempts downfield.
Hmm.
Now, obviously, there were a couple games that we were tracking last year and thinking, "Oh my God, is he ever going to throw more than more than 10 yards down the field?" I think you're going to see the 7 to 8 whatever attempts more than 15 yards down the field. This coming season, he's just got to be more accurate, and you've got to have guys do a better job of winning. And one of the things I talked about Chase Claypool, one of the few things that I kind of worried about Chase Claypool coming down to Notre Dame was the ability to stack receivers and get that full step on him. Now, look, we've seen him do it, a couple times already, a game against Denver and all like that. But we got to see him win a little bit more consistently, I think, down the field. But the number one concern I have right now when it comes to Roethlisberger and the deep ball would be accuracy.
All right. Well, I'm at to the question. Do you think that'll change? Do you have any reason to believe it'll be different this season?
No, not right
Right.
now. I mean,
Right.
until we see it get better,
Right.
no.
And that's a big concern because then you're not in the exact same boat as you were last year. Because hopefully the run game will be better. But if you can't throw deep and have that vertical threat, then those corners going to be jumping routes all day, knowing that they're not going to be. It's not going to be a concern over the top, and that's going to be limiting. Yeah, it's going to see more stack boxes, more 8-man fronts, and that's obviously going to be a hindrance for the offense.
Right. I
So
mean, we look, I don't know what to say other than we'll see when it comes to that.
right, because that's the thing. Like this wasn't brand new. I mean, it wasn't like last year was the first year there were these issues. These issues existed in 2018 as well with the Wi-Fi comments, as you mentioned. So, um, do I see this getting better? Maybe a little, but how much? And will it get good enough? I think it's a very much an open question that has to be proven. All right, next question, and we've gotten a couple comments here about the site being down. Yeah, as Dave mentioned earlier on Twitter, we're doing some site changes, some site migration, so there could be brief periods of downtime tonight. So I appreciate you guys letting us know, but that is all anticipated and should be resolved pretty quickly. We'll probably talk about that more on tomorrow's podcast. Going back here to the questions, got actually a comment here from Brian Sherby. No question, just wanted to say thank you for being the best Steelers coverage, bar none. Love the pod and the site. Thank you, Brian. Really appreciate those nice comments. Question here from Jay Stewart. Alex or Dave, have either of you played football when you were a kid or high schooler? Dave, you got run over by some pretty famous people in high school, didn't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. One Emmett Smith for sure.
Yeah, so you played. Did you play varsity, junior? What was your,
Oh
how
yeah,
long
yeah,
did you
yeah.
play?
Varsity,
Oh,
just a couple seasons there.
okay, so what, through freshman to sophomore year, or what was the story?
Junior and senior.
Junior and senior. Okay, and I did not play because I am very small and I would not be here if I played high school football, probably. Let's see. Bear Pod, how much improvement in the passing game should we expect if Najee and the play action come into play? I think the bigger point there is play action. The question is how much will they do it and how exactly are they going to utilize that? But, obviously, not that you have to have a good run game to set up play action. Play action is all about just selling it because defense is always going to key in on playing the run, but it's certainly not going to hurt you if your run game is more effective and if Najee Harris can make an impact in that way. It's going to open up play action and open up some of those downfield throws that this team has struggled on so much recently. So hopefully that is one way that the deep ball can improve, even if Ben's physical talents and physical capabilities might not change and probably won't change a whole lot for the better in 2021. Next question will come from, trying to scroll back down through them here past Kyle's question here for another 20 minutes. Chris W. will also have a question, more of a comment. Says Arthur Motes thinks Morgan Moses would be a great signing, and he even played against him. I haven't listened to Motes. I saw the thumbnail in the video. I did not listen to it. Certainly respect Motes' opinion, and I think Moses is a good tackle. I don't disagree with that, but just the money and the fit and where do you play him, I think are some of the bigger questions when it comes to a guy like Morgan Moses.
Yeah, look, I mean, you can always create cap space. The thing is, and I wrote about this the other day. How bad do you want to create it?
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about a guy like Morgan Moses, I mean, what are you even looking at? Him wanting. I think you and I talked about the other day on the podcast. What if he wants around, I don't know, $6 million total? Well, you'd have to obviously give him a base salary of 1.075. You'd have to make up the rest of that probably in a signing bonus of 3.025, and then that deal's obviously going to have to be two years or longer there. I would imagine Morgan Moses would want it all voidable years after the first year, so he can take one more bite of the free agent apple. Is that something the Steelers are willing to do in order to have the player but lessen the 2021 cap hit?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of doubt it. I mean, you're talking about a team already that's got Chiquamo Okorafor. They've got Zach Banner. They went out and paid Joe Haig more than NFL minimum. Oh yeah, and they also drafted Dan Moore Jr. in the 4th round on top of it. So I mean, is it impossible, as I like to say, when it comes to this team possibly adding a tackle? I mean, it's always possible. It's just at this point, barring injuries right now, I mean, I don't see it happening, Alex.
No, I'm with you, and that was the question I think Paul also had. How would we make cap space room for Morgan Moses? It probably would come through a voidable year deal, because unless you did something with Joe Hayden doing one of those things, I think probably the most logical way is with Moses doing the voidable year contract, where the first year it's a 1 year deal, but it's 4 years on paper to void the other three and free up cap space that way through those maneuvers. But I'm not seeing it happen either. And by the way, you guys can check if you want, but the site should be back up. I just pulled it back up, and you guys can see the new look of Steelers Depot. And hopefully you guys enjoy, and be sure to leave your feedback as well.
I think we got a little bit of sluggishness still on it that
Okay.
they're trying to work out through
Okay.
here, Alex. So
Gotcha. But the site should at least be up.
yeah. We'll have to work through this the rest of the night. Having some migration issues here, I think.
Okay. We'll power through the rest of these not super chats, but just chats in general. If you want to send a super chat, you certainly can do that. Let's see. The question was Thomas R. In simple words, can we explain what the difference in Canada's offense will be? What kind of packages? I would say the two biggest differences that you'll see in terms of just using simple words is pistol and motion. I think you'll see more pistol. That'll create more play action and more downhill action in the run game, and more of that pre-snap motion that you saw at the start of last year, but kind of went away, really did go away by year's end. So I think pistol and motion will be some of the hallmarks of the Matt Canada coached Steelers offense. Faceless Man, do you think Kendrick Green and Freiermuth will start? I can see Canada really bullying defenses with two tight end sets with Chase. If you're asking me now, will Kendrick Green beat up BJ Finney for week 1? I think he will. I think the goal is to get this guy to start and play and see what you have in him. I think he's going to fit better in. If they're going to run more zone blocking stuff, Green will certainly be an upgrade there over BJ Finney. And Finney, is fine backup, but he's not going to give you much stellar play. Your offense is not going to be really good. You're not going to get a big push in the run game with BJ Finney in the middle from that position, at least. So I think Green probably will start by week 1. Freiermuth probably won't, but again, when you're playing in 12 personnel and things like that, you're going to rotate in. So even though he's not going to be an official starter, he's going to still play, I would probably say 40 to 45% of the snaps, and the Islanders just scored. So the game is now tied at 1. David, do you think Kendrick Green will start week 1?
Yeah, I do. I don't think there's any other way around it.
Wow, so you're that confident? You think there's a really, really high chance he'll start by week 1?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Let's see. Next question will come from Luke, who says, how much do you think it was Ben's knee injury that affected his play last year? Yeah, I think we kind of forget about that. We talked about that a lot when it was happening, especially I think that Washington game. I know Ben shrugged it off and downplayed the knee concerns of just being an older guy, but I do think that that was an issue. So yeah, I think that's something we forget about. But the question is, will his knees be any better this year? Maybe at the start of the year, but by year's end, I think could be kind of different. All right, next question will come from. Let's see here. Trying to find the next question. Todd Williams, should we be concerned about inside linebacker? I think it just depends on Devin Bush and how he looks in his return, and hopefully he'll be 100% and fully recovered. So, no, I don't. I think you get Devin Bush back, and as long as he stays healthy, I'll be pretty happy overall with Devin Bush and Vince Williams and Robert Spillane. And I was really impressed the more I watched the fourth round pick, Buddy Johnson. Let's see here. Did Can't Never Repair replace their field? Don't need any injury in the Hall of Fame game. I think so, but I haven't really kept up what happened with Can't. I know they've had some terrible field conditions, games getting canceled in seasons past. So hopefully it's been addressed. But I honestly have not followed what's going on there. This was a Tom Benson Field. Have not seen that. See, Roro, biggest concern for the Steelers, Dave. What do you think is the biggest concern for the Steelers right now?
Yes.
No, you can't say that. It's not that bad.
Look, once again, it goes back to how big of a step does this defense take in 2021, and can the offense take enough step forward to help compensate that? So I think those are the biggest things here. I think it's kind of foolish to expect this defense to have as low of a adjusted net yards per passing attempts stat against that they had top three, top two in the league last year. I think it's a little much to ask for that. So the offense is going to have to pick up the slack here, and that means, can they really find a way to run the football better? Can they be a little bit better in the red zone? Can they jump out on teams and get some of these all those first possession streaks, and it just seemed never ending that this team just horrible in the first couple of possessions of ball games. You need to start jumping on teams so you can get this get yourself obviously in situations in the fourth quarter where you're able to run the football a little bit more and run it successfully at that. So, I mean, I think, I said yes and was kind of joking around, but there is a lot of questions about this team right now, and on both sides of the football. At that, you don't have Bud Dupree. How big of a step can Alex Highsmith take on that side, and specifically against the run? On top of it, we already talked about the cornerback room. The cornerback room going to have question marks all over it as well too there. So that's why I think you're seeing pretty much in national media wise, why a lot of people why the win total for the Steelers is right around 8.5 to 9 wins, and why some people probably are going to wind up predicting them to have their first losing season since Mike Tomlin took over.
Right, we were the first since '03 in Bill Cowher, which led them to Ben in the '04 draft. I would just say the biggest concern, the biggest question mark is just that offensive line in general, because there is so much newness there. There's so many new moving pieces. Obviously, you have confidence in guys like Kevin Dotson year two, David DeCastro, hopefully can bounce back and be healthy, and Kendrick Green, and we'll see what Zach Banner can do. But just a lot of questions there for a group that's always been stable, consistent, year in, year out. So you knew the front five you were going to have, they were going to play well. Just a whole new chapter, really, with that offensive line. Since 2019, the only remaining starter has been or is David DeCastro. So I think that just a lot of change there. Hopefully for the better. I understand why they did it, but just an unknown there, and that's a collective group that you really need to make sure they're playing well, especially because Ben, obviously, not a very mobile quarterback anymore.
Someone in the chat here says, Highsmith's going to be a Pro Bowl replacement. Based on what? I mean, do you think he's going to be a Pro Bowler, Alex, in this season?
No, because I don't know if the sacks alone are going to be enough, because, you're going to have TJ Watt getting 15, 17 sacks, and Cam Hayward's going to get around 10. Same with Stephon Tuitt. So will the numbers be good enough? But I like Alex Highsmith. I thought he had a really good rookie season. I think he can be a great complement to TJ Watt. I'll put it that way.
Right. I mean, and he replies in your hard work. I mean, okay, it's all fine and good to be a positive Steelers fan. I get that, and he did play well, especially down the stretch there. Uh, I liked even earlier in the season when he kind of learned from his own lesson in the coverage situation in the Ravens and got the interception in that game there. But I mean, come on, folks, if you're looking at this defense right now, trying to be as objective as possible here, I mean, to go out there and say that Alex Highsmith right now, based on what you see, is going to be a Pro Bowl replacement in 2021. I mean, I think that's just blind kind of faith right now on that. I mean, you want him to take. Mike Tomlin talks all the time about these second year players and taking that step forward. We do expect him to take that step forward, but how big a step forward should he be expected to take there?
Hmm.
And I don't know. He's got to get better against the run for sure. And then I liked a lot of things that he did with the pass rush. We saw a lot of varied pass rush moves, and saw the ghost rush, and we saw the spin, and you like that aspect of it. But it's more about playing defense than just rushing the passer. Play in and play out as well too. So there are a lot of aspects of Highsmith's game that has to get better before we're talking about him even being remotely considered a Pro Bowler.
Sure, I think to be a Pro Bowl or even a replacement, it's probably going to require around 10 sacks. And do I think Alex Highsmith will have a 10 sack season? Probably not. Again, partially because of just the other sacks will be siphoned away by the other guys on this team. It's still really strong, get after the quarterback front seven. But also because I don't know if Highsmith is quite there yet as a pass rusher. But I think he'll have a good sophomore season. Got a super chat here from Chad Weiss. Happy birthday, Alex. $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Chad. Really appreciate it. I know you're here for a lot of these streams and a lot of comments on Steelers Depot. So both of us very, very thankful for that. Couple more questions here the last 10 minutes. So be sure to ask your last minute questions in the chat for Dave and I. Stephen Mancari says, best guess on a player KC will trade a 6th, 7th round flyer for. Any breakdown article scheduled on this frequent practice? I've written about Colbert's very often trades in August, and I'll have to probably revisit that because it's been a couple of years. I would say an edge rusher. Obviously, it depends a lot on camp injuries and who's available and who knows what's going to happen once the season begins in terms of preseason and then going hopefully to Latrobe. But I think edge could be the one position that they will probably look to upgrade if guys like Cassius March and Quincy Roche aren't giving them what they want and need in training camp.
Yeah, look, I mean, and we talked about that earlier in this very live stream and all. I think it's going to be a defensive player or two. Now, look, I still haven't totally given up hope that maybe a tight end, maybe Jesse James on the cheap or something like that and all. But I think they're not done. B, I think at least one, if not two, defensive players are on the way, and I gotta be honest with you. I will be shocked if they don't add kind of an experienced outside linebacker, 27 to 29 years old, or 26, 29 years old, right around there. That can give you a little bit of help on special teams there, because I really think they need it, man.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I love Quincy Roche's tape. I think he's quite a bit of a steal there when they got him, especially in the 6th round. I think the high side on him, the ceiling on him is very good, but I mean, it's going to take time, folks. I think you're going to want to get him out there on the field for special teams. And look, we saw Alex Highsmith right out of the chute last year start getting a few snaps. Are they going to get in a situation where they have to have Quincy Roche do the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to see an outside linebacker at some point. I think possibly a tight end. And like I said, I think there's a decent chance that depending on what they see at the slot cornerback position, maybe you see a slot cornerback as well too. Look, I mean, you go back all the way back to 2012, folks, an average of like 3.1 players added by the team after rookie minicamp takes place that wind up making a 53-man roster. So this roster is not set.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think somebody gets at it. I think edge is probably the most likely position that they will address as we sit here today. Joey Jr., do you think Ben sits out during Week 18 if the game doesn't matter? I don't know if you mean that in the sense of they've locked up a playoff spot and have nothing to play for, or if they haven't, if they're eliminated from the playoffs and they just want to see what they have in Mason Rudolph. Maybe for a one-game finale, something like that. I wouldn't expect an Eli Manning situation where he would get benched, 3 quarters through the season and Rudolph or someone's going to finish things out. I don't expect that to happen. Let's see here. Paul was asking about Morgan Moses. How could they afford him? I think we addressed that question already. Anthony Whipple saying, would Moses be an upgrade over what we currently have on the line? I just don't know much about Zach Banner as a right tackle, as an NFL player in general. I just has not played a ton of football. So do I think he'd be an upgrade Moses would, 1 versus 1 in a vacuum, money aside? Probably, but I want to see more from Zach Banner just because we've only seen this guy play, one career start at tackle and got hurt in the fourth quarter of that Giants game, tore his ACL. So it's hard to make that comparison right now. How many comp picks do the Steelers have right now? That's from Reginald Rivers. Technically 0 because the comp picks have not been issued for next year, but the projection is for them to get at least 2, a third for Bud Dupree, a fifth for Matt Filer, and still maybe be, I think, a fifth rounder for Mike Hilton, depending on how much Joe Haig plays this year. So that is not being projected and factored in right now, but it is still a possibility. So maybe 3 comp picks in total. A couple more questions here, and then we will wrap things up. Paul with the nursing question. What's the over-underline on the number of holds Kendrick Green has in his first 5 games? Was he a grabby guy on tape, Dave? I don't really recall that.
No, I mean, I think he had what, 2 or 3 holds, didn't he?
Yeah, just
I,
not a, that's
I,
a
I've
good number.
I've got some stats over here somewhere on him, play by play. I'd have to pull up there. Uh, when kind of going through that and kind of going through the tape, I didn't see anything that really stuck out. You know, that was a huge issue with him.
Mm-hmm.
At least not last season.
Right. I mean, I know he's an aggressive guy, but it didn't seem to manifest negatively in terms of holds. Sometimes it met him overextending or whiffing on blocks or on the ground a little too much because he's just so trying to get in your face. But I didn't really see that as a holding issue. But so I don't know what the number would be. 2, 3 probably 2 was the over under on Kendrick Green for holds. But I don't think it's an issue with him.
Let me see if I can sort this by penalty real quick here for
Okay.
Illinois, and then holding and
Yeah, I don't know how many he had.
yeah, I'm just seeing the team really 3, 4, 5, 6 holding calls in total,
Wow.
and one of those is defensive holding. I'm not saying that he didn't have. Now there are Illinois penalty offensive holding and a couple of no names on here, but I
Mm-hmm.
mean in total I'm showing, let's see, 4, I think 5 offensive holding penalties on this team last year, just by sorting some day play-by-play data there. Nothing's mentions Green specifically. I think I did see somewhere that he did have 1 or 2 holding calls, I think, last season.
Sure.
But once again, I don't remember when going through the tape or whatever, that was an issue.
Wrap things up here with a couple more questions on Najee Harris. Matthew Wolf says, what do you think would be considered a satisfactory return for Najee? 1,000 more or less? I don't know if that's total yards. I assume that's probably just rushing yards. I think 1,100 yards rushing to break Franco Harris's rookie record of 1055, and probably about another 400 to 500 receiving is kind of where I'm expecting Najee Harris in year 1. That's kind of like my expectation for him.
About what?
1,100 rushing and about 400 to 500 receiving.
Oh man, I'd sign up right now if you told me he could have 1,500 total yards from scrimmage. I mean, look, 17 games this year, and I mean, if you would think he's going to touch the ball at least 300 times,
Right.
and even 300 times at an average yard per touch at 5 yards is, I mean, that's 1,500 yards right there. So, I mean, and I wrote, and you and I will talk about it on the podcast. I think Tuesday, some of the expectations that I have just based on where he was drafted and looking back at, I mean, at the bare minimum, 250 touches. I think
Hmm.
should be asked of him. So the extra game and all. I mean, 300 total touches. I mean, I think people should be disappointed if it's not 1,500 total yards from scrimmage or thereabouts, and I don't know, 8, 9 touchdowns somewhere along those lines.
Right, because even if he's got only 200, did you say 250 in terms of touches or carries?
250 in terms of what did I do that stat on the other day? I
Um,
don't know if we can get to it right now.
yeah, and I was gone. I had skimmed it. You were talking about the total touch numbers overall and the success rates and all that.
Right, right,
Yeah. I don't remember exactly all the details for that one, but I mean, 250 touches is only even in a 16 games. If he misses a game, 250 is 15.6 a game. He's going to blow past that number.
all right.
I
He
mean,
should.
he'll get that in carries unless something terrible has happened.
Right. So I mean, once again, it should be 300 total touches for him,
Hmm.
or thereabouts.
Right.
And obviously, you would love to get in a situation where games, where the 17th game doesn't mean anything and he can sit, but uh, and what's he going to miss, just in attrition, maybe injury wise,
Right.
hopefully none, but you could see a situation where maybe one or something along those lines. But even with that, I mean, I don't think it's out of a question to think that he's going to get 300 touches. And once again, 300 touches at a five yards per touch is 1,500
Yeah.
total yards from scrimmage. And once you spend a first round draft pick on him, you got you got to have that.
Yeah, got a late super chat here. Thank you so much from Double HH, frequent viewer of these streams. Does not appear to have a question unless there's one incoming with a $20 super chat. So thank you so much, Double HH. Really, really appreciate that. Our final question will come from, and I lost the name here, but it was about Najee Harris from Toby. Says, how much playing time will Najee see in the preseason? That's a good question. He's going to see, some. Um, Man, that is a really good question. I don't know how to frame that, what number to put at it, but I mean, he'll see, a decent amount of work. I'll put it that way, Toby. What do you think, Dave, in terms of Najee Harris playing time there?
All right, got to get him in there.
Yeah,
Got to get him in there.
still got to prove it. Still got to show that he can be that guy. So I don't know a number. We'll probably investigate that closer towards the start of the preseason. So that will do it for today's stream. I want to thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. Dave, as always, thank you for being here as well.
Appreciate it. Appreciate everybody for showing up. Appreciate all the support. And look, we're going through a transition on the site right now, so it might go up and down here for the next. We're trying to get it straightened out there. So just be a little patient here with the site tonight.
Yeah, and hopefully you guys will enjoy the new look of Steelers Depot. We'll talk about that more on the podcast tomorrow. So thank you guys for being here. Again, this will be posted on Steelers Depot either later tonight or tomorrow, and you can see a replay of it on the channel as well. And tomorrow we'll have a video on Jarvis Jones and why he was one of the biggest busts of the Kevin Corbett era. So thank you guys for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.